Good evening, everybody, and tonight these candidates here are vying for your electoral vote for the Ohariu Electorate. But with every election, there's one thing stepping in their way, and that's your vote. Kia ora, good evening, and welcome to tonight's It's in Ballot show live here from the Kandala Town Hall. How is everybody going this evening? Well, sounds like we've got a bit of an enthusiastic audience and members who are here today. So I'd like to introduce you to Tony Randell, who's going to be our question host for tonight. Tony, welcome to the show.
Oh, it's great to be here. Thanks, Sam.
No problem. Thank you for coming in to fill in the fun night for us here tonight. We're glad to have a Ohariu voter, since I'm no longer in that boat. I've got the title of Rongotai electorate, so it's good to have a Ohariu voter helping chair the show. Okay, so let's get first up here with candidates' opening statements. Let's kick off with Martin. What's your opening statement for tonight, please? You've got 1 minute.
Chair, candidates, residents and guests. I'm representing the Protect and Prosper Party, Ohariu candidate. My background is engineering and finance, and I've also I've worked in project management, property development. I spent 30 years living in Ohariu, and I know a lot of people here, and I've actually been involved with a lot of organisations. I've also been on the Orca committee and involved with the resilience emergency planning. I believe I'm the right person for the area because I know the area very well, and I've got the professional expertise and experience to serve you. Thank you.
Okay, next up, Stephanie, your opening statement of why the Ohariu voters should give you their electoral vote.
Kia ora koutou, ko Stephanie Rogers tōku ingoa. I am the Green Party candidate for Ohariu. Slight misconception, I am not seeking the electorate vote, I am seeking the Green Party vote. And the best thing about me seeking the Green Party vote is you can give your electorate vote to someone else and end up with 2 or 3 MPs for Ohariu in Parliament, and wouldn't that be a great thing? I'm running for the Greens because the status quo is only delivering for bankers and billionaires. Those are political decisions, and we deserve a government that will actually make the changes we need to the status quo to ensure that every single person can live a good life and have access to amazing public services and facilities. I'm running in Ohariu because this is my home, this is where I live with my partner and our small child. We are so lucky to have all of the amenities that we have in the northern suburbs of Wellington, but you shouldn't have to be lucky to enjoy that, and having a strong Green voice in Parliament will ensure that it doesn't take luck, because these things are simply provided for everyone. Kia ora.
Okay, next up, Jessica.
Kia ora tātou, ko Jessica Hammond, tōku ingoa. I'm very proud to be standing in Ohariu, my home, for TOP, the Opportunities Party, for the 3rd time. I'm standing in Ohariu because this is my home. I've lived here with my partner and children for nearly 17 years. And I think that I could do a great job representing our community. I love this community, and I am a true local, and no one is going to take care of your community like someone who chose to live here because they love the place, not because it's merely a potentially winnable electorate. I'm standing for TOP because we're the only party that can change this constant grinding left-right shuffle that we've had in Parliament for the last 30 years. One party puts something in, the other repeals it. We go left, right, left, right, left, right, continual shuffle and never move forwards. We need to make progress in this country, and TOP can deliver that. So I'm asking for both the party vote and the electorate vote. Kia ora.
Thank you. There. Next up, Greg, the incumbent.
Kia ora, Greg O'Connor. I am the incumbent MP, Labour MP, only standing as an electorate MP as opposed to being on the list. However, I am now asking for your vote as an electorate MP and for Labour. I have had 40 years in the police, and that is something that equips me very well to be an electorate MP. It means I use my skill set to get out and find out exactly what's happening in this electorate. People won't come to you, you need to go to them. Places like the pubs, the sports clubs, the churches, and everywhere else where people gather. And I'll stand on my record that I've been very, very available to everyone in this electorate, and I'm seeking the vote to remain the MP here for the next 3 years at least, to continue the work I've been able to do of representing every part of the electorate. Kia ora.
Okay, and last up, Patrick.
Hello, I'm Patrick. I'm the Vision candidate for Ohariu. Vision New Zealand is part of the umbrella party Freedoms New Zealand, which has 6 parties and groups within it. I'm also on the list for Freedoms New Zealand. So I'm married and I have 2 children, and I've lived in the Ohariu Electorate for over 12 years. My background is in science and in the medical field. Worked as a community pharmacist for 15 years. Also run a business in photography. So never would I see myself standing today here, or even be here today. But over the last 6-7 years, we've all seen many crises in our great nation, and many people have become so divided more than ever. Many have been shut down and ignored and forgotten. So I'm standing to be a voice for the voiceless, but also for empowering families. For Vision New Zealand, we have family focus, moral integrity.
Okay, and for those who are wondering where Nicola Willis is and Paul Day, I'm just going to check, make sure that Nicola Willis has declined, and she has not nominated a person to stand in on her behalf, which we do encourage when candidates cannot make it in their busy schedules, and we've had no response from Paul Day, the ACT candidate. Okay, we're going to go a bit different here. We haven't had time to make the electorate video, so we're going to do this a bit freestyle. So can we get the shared screen up, please? Thanks there, Alex. Okay, there we are. So that's the Ohariu Electorate. So if we scroll down from the south, let's sit there and see where the suburbs are from the south. That includes the Wadestown, Crofton Downs. You've got Ngaio as you go up the map, and you've got Kandala. It also includes Nauronga, Kaiwhatawhata, Broadmeadows. And as we head up, we also have Newlands, Paparangi, Granada Village, Johnsonville, Churton Park. And if we keep creeping up, we also head into Granada North, and we got Tawa, and it is the southern half of Tawa by McKellen Street Railway Crossing is a good indication there. And if we head out to the coast, it also includes the Ohariu Valley part, but does not include Macra Beach. So I hope that does it. And for those who are wondering what is unique about the Ohariu Electorate, it has New Zealand's first motorway exit, first motorway in New Zealand, and New Zealand's longest double-track railway tunnel. And when it opened, it was one of the longest double-track railway tunnels in the Southern Hemisphere. So I think that's a very quick, short, sharp, straight to the point electorate video. Okay, so now with the show tonight, have we given our candidates our button and our defer cards yet, or are they on their way? Okay, so we'll sit there and get them. Okay, so for those who are wondering, okay, each candidate has 2 button cards. So if they have a question that someone else has got that they like and they want to interject and button, they can use their card and give their answer as well. And also we have 1 defer card. That is when a candidate may have a question that's a bit too hairy for their liking, so they may pass that on to another one. Now we'll have the cards given out to the candidates as we're just hunting for them backstage as we speak. Now, now each candidate goes one by one who gets to go and pick a box number, and Tony here gets to read out the question and they get to answer it. And we have got our random order system in tonight. Request by incumbent MP Greg O'Connor from 2020, and we've kept that on board. So number 1 on the first round is Stephanie. What box number would you like?
Oh, wow, no pressure.
Yes, no pressure.
Do I have to pick one from the front row? No, I'm going to go to the back row and pick my list position for the Green Party, which is 20.
Don't need to bother pressing the numbers.
All right.
What's the number on the card so those at home know?
Oh, sorry. Yes, of course. So it's you. So the question is, what is your party's policy to get families out of emergency accommodation and into long-term stable housing?
Ooh, kia ora for that, Tony. So, 1 minute. The Green Party have a number of policies that are going to address this issue because the problems are twofold. Rent is too high, incomes are too low. So we're going to have an income guarantee that ensures everyone has a minimum income of $385 a week, as well as universal child tax credits. On top of that, we're also going to introduce rental controls and massively increase public and community housing builds to increase the number of affordable houses out there for people. It's simply an absolute crying shame that we still have people in, quote, emergency housing, unquote, which is actually just hotel rooms, when, to be honest, we could be doing so much more. That is something the current government has failed to do, and a strong Green Party as part of the next government would ensure just doesn't happen.
Thank you for that. Next up, Patrick, what box number?
I'll go with 17.
Okay, 17 from the front. To what extent
Box number.
Oh, sorry. Oh. To what extent do you consider that the public transport policies are incentives? You consider that public transport policies are incentives to support the use of public transport while also reducing climate change impacts?
All right. I mean, we at Vision New Zealand, Freedoms New Zealand, we believe that public transport needs to be affordable and accessible for all people, and part of that requires making public transport affordable to run as well as affordable to the user.
That's very short, sharp and brief. Okay, next up, Jessica, what box number?
Number 5, please, Tony.
Okay, number 5. Number 5 is an H. And the question is, the Future of Local Government report says a significant fund is also needed to support climate change adaptation activities. How is your party going to respond to this issue?
When we have a really strong emissions trading scheme and the government doesn't interfere with the emissions trading scheme as Labor has done in the last term, then the emissions trading scheme generates money. People who are emitting a lot, they give money, and that money can be used to reduce emissions somewhere else. So if we keep the emissions trading scheme strong, if we take pine forestry out of there, which will not only stop the country being blanketed in pine forest, but also raise the price of carbon, which is an incentive we need, then we're going to have more money for climate change resilience projects. On top of that, we would give local government the GST off new builds, which both helps with the funding problem they have and incentivises new building of housing to help with the housing crisis.
Okay, thank you. Next up, Greg, what box number? Anything in particular why 25 is special for you?
Pragmatic. Yes, this is an A for you. So the question is this. My fiance and myself are concerned that we will never be able to afford a property in Ohariu where we grew up. What are you doing to make housing in this area affordable?
Well, of course, I'm part of a government, Labor government, where the house prices have come down because we've changed the tax system. Because what the problem is, that couple goes to buy a house. If they're competing against an investor, it's worth way more to the investor. Now, with the 10-year bright line test, and with not being able to get interest deductibility, it means it's a level playing field. That is why house prices have gone down. What's worse is that I was speaking to a real estate agent, already the investors are back in the market. Nothing wrong, they're smart people, because in anticipation of a National Party victory where they will go back. Wonderful that they've got back in their name, because they're going to go back to the old system, which means that house prices will actually go through the roof again. And just add on to that, foreign buyers back into the market as well. So we will continue to do what we're doing, which is to incentivise through the tax system to make sure that young couples, first home buyers, are on the same market. It's worth the same value to them as it is to an investor. That's not going to be the case under the new system. That's National proposing.
Okay, Martin would like to use his button card, followed by Jessica.
We would like to make house prices affordable by focusing on the outskirts of on the city fringe. The reality is you can't build an affordable house at 600,000 in a built-up area of scale. If we're looking for large numbers of houses, which we are, we have to go to the city fringe. I mean, the reality is that in the city, you're paying 5,000 build rate, 1,200 a square metre. So the idea is to have it out city fringe and to have the infrastructure paid for by the government, and to have the transport routes flower out to there, and then the big box retailers follow. And that's been it's a myth that Wellington is a spread out city. It's not. So we need to get on with it. Otherwise we won't have any houses. I mean, look how few houses have been built now. They're talking about all these houses, and we've seen very, very few in the city CBD areas. So we need to build tens of thousands of houses on the city fringe, and there's plenty of land at the back of Johnsonville and Granada.
Okay, Jessica, now your button.
This person who thinks they're never going to be able to afford a home in this area, I'm sorry, you are right, unless something changes in government. The housing crisis is a crisis that successive governments have chosen. They chose it in 1989 when they changed the tax system to massively incentivise investment in housing and encourage investment away from the productive economy. They didn't mean to. They were going to address this tax problem, but they lost interest. And for 30 years, no one has done anything about it. We've had the highest increase in house prices in the OECD, and the tax system also means we have the third biggest houses in the OECD. That is why we are too spread out. That is why we have inefficient cities. That is why we don't have enough supply, and that is why we have too much demand. That is why, unless TOP gets in and makes these parties change the tax system, I'm very sorry, you are not going to be able to afford a house in this area, and neither are my children.
Okay, now back to the box numbers. Martin, what box number are you wanting?
Number 2, right beside me. And in 2 we have an N. And the question for you, Martin, is, if you had been an elected MP at the time of the protests at Parliament regarding the mandates, would you have gone to the grounds of Parliament to listen and acknowledge the concerns of the people?
Yes, I would have been the first down there. I have a strong belief that the grounds outside Parliament is the place to protest, and they should be protected for such. I've been involved with protests, and I've been involved with my drowsy driving educational campaign. We have crosses on the grounds at Parliament. It's utterly important that we keep that space for any protest. There's very, very few other suitable spaces around the city. So the answer is yes, most certainly.
Okay, so now let's generate a new list.
Sam.
Oh, we have a button from Patrick. Sorry, I didn't see that.
Yeah, I would agree with Martin, and I will definitely go down to listen As MPs, we are meant to listen to our people and, to listen and acknowledge their concerns. There was a poll that was done. 30% of Kiwis actually supported the protest, the anti-mandate protest at Parliament, and that's not a minority. That's quite a lot of New Zealanders. So we need, as MPs, really speak to our people. So whether you agree with it or not, our job is to listen to the people. So I fully would go down. Many were hurt. Many had broken relationships. Many businesses were lost. I know of people who have broken marriages all because of this. So we need to listen to our people. Thanks.
Okay, now we're on to that list that we were talking about just before. Martin, you get to go first this time round. Oh, I really love the way how the system sat there and chose it as well.
Which number?
So box number 3.
Box number 3.
I swear this software had AI or something, because I doubt that it would know what order the people are sitting in on the stage.
It seems to. So we've D here. So the question, Martin, long-term change requires strong and binding cross-party collaboration and agreement. A recent example would be the Mental Health and Addictions Working Group, which did not have decision-making powers. What is one area that your party would commit to attempt genuine, lasting and binding cross-party work for the long-term benefit of Aotearoa and New Zealand?
That would have to be in the area of road safety. It's been a concern for a long time. There hasn't been that in road safety. And the first thing I would do is I'd actually commence an official investigation into the true crash causes on the road. We hear the talk that speed's #1 crash cause, which is false. And it's very important that we actually set up a proper education, do that first, and then set up a targeted educational campaign which covers other crash causes such as inattentive behaviour, preoccupation, distraction, drug driving, speed, alcohol, and also the likes of intersections and restraints. It's very important that we drill down, because at the moment we've got 3 times the death rate, 3.5 times the death rate in the safest country, which is Sweden, and that's just not good enough. And it's because we're actually targeting the wrong things. Inattention is the biggest killer on the road, and we need to be honest with ourselves, honest amongst the parties, and
Okay, next up, Stephanie.
Somehow I knew you were going to say my name. Could I get 26, please? Because it's my birthday.
Age or actual date?
Yes.
So 26 is an M. And here is your question, Stephanie. Do you think New Zealand should investigate having an independent commissioner against corruption like New South Wales?
So this is not something the Green Party has a specific policy on, but I will say we obviously love transparency and hate corruption, which I'm pretty sure no one here would disagree with. We do have specific policies for reforming the OIA to increase transparency in government. We also want to get the big money out of politics. And given that New Zealand is apparently, by most measures, a fairly non-corrupt country, I think just all of those efforts we can make towards increasing transparency and people's engagement with our democracy is a pretty good start.
Okay, Jessica, what box? Oh, Martin would like to put a button. Gee, using up those cards quick.
Thank you. Absolutely, we need an independent commission, ICAC, like they have in Australia. I mean, we're talking in New Zealand of emails down behind couches. We're talking about Official Information Act 1982, schooling on how to dumb it down and not to respond in a professional way. We're talking about corruption related to the use of the cabinet manual and people standing next to others and saying, this is my view. We're talking about a whole raft of things, and it's time that we had independent commission against corruption that sits above the Prime Minister, above the ministers, and above all of the servants. So yes, most definitely, we need to have that, just as in Australia. There's too many of us, friends and sort of. And also the other thing is that the use of shares, for example. We've had situations where we've had ministers who've clearly had portfolios of shares, and they've been making decisions, whether it be a board or something like that. So we need to sort that out.
Thank you. Okay, Jessica.
Number 9, please, Tony.
Thank you. Number 9 is an I. And the question is this for you, Jessica.
What letter?
I.
I.
An I must be another letter.
An L?
An L.
Does that look a lot
No.
better?
The question is, over the past few years, New Zealand has suffered from many forms of division. That's a J, is it? J. Sorry, it's a bit cut off at the bottom. How would your party reconnect people and heal the divide so that we are a united country once again?
There are a bunch of reasons that we have arguably become more divided as a country, but I think the main problem is that a lot of people feel that this country is not serving them. The main reason, surprise, surprise, I'm going to say, is that we haven't provided for people's housing needs. We heard the other night that the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition were both able to buy houses in their early 20s at about ages 21 and 22. That seems absolutely absurd to young people today. It's a completely outrageous dream. So a lot of the people in our parliament have benefited from the system that existed when they were young and pulled up the ladder behind them. So young people in particular are not feeling like the society is for them. We strongly believe in encouraging social cohesion. One of the things we will do that with is a teal card, which is like a gold card for young people, which includes civic education and activities to get them engaged in our community.
Okay, next up, Greg, what box number?
21.
What the voting age used to be before they lowered it to, when did they lower it to 20 or 18? Okay. I do know 21 was one age because that was when my grandma was, our first time vote was 1949. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so I've got a letter C here. And the question for you, Greg, is what would you do financially, it's close to my heart actually, as a city councillor, what would you do financially to financially assist local government to fix the pipes and infrastructure?
Oh, what a wonderful question for a Labor MP. The reason I went to Labor is the only party that can actually do anything in this country. And Three Waters is actually just that, because anyone in Wellington opposed to Three Waters is walking or driving around blind, because the Wellington City Council ratepayers don't have enough money, as ratepayers in no local body area have enough money to fix it. So the government has actually taken this on and said, we will actually use our balance sheet ability to ensure that we can actually do this. It was originally going to be 4 entities. Now, to ensure that there is local representation, it is going to be 10 entities. People will stand and say, but you're taking our assets. No, we are not. We are taking your liabilities. And if any government stands up and says, we're giving you back your assets, no, they're not. They're giving them back their liability. So that's what we are already doing.
It sounds like they're promising a rusted up Toyota Corolla and promising it out as a brand new Mercedes. Is that the best way to describe it? If they're giving you asset backs?
I have no idea what you just said, Sam, but I'll just say yes.
Okay, Patrick, what box number?
Well, I will go with 22.
22. Okay.
Oh, yes. Good choice of dates.
And we have an E. And the question is, Patrick, what is your party's stance on central bank digital currency? And will your party support removing cash from being used in New Zealand?
Good question. No, We definitely need to keep our cash. Cash is essential for our culture. It has been for centuries, the way of exchanging, human exchange, physical exchange in our society. So, I mean, if we take that away, elderlies will be impacted, to forced to fully use digital. Most of them don't even know how to use a phone. Children will not be able to learn budgeting sometimes physically. Charities will be greatly impacted. Sometimes it's just a donation as you walk through the door or into those collecting boxes. But without physical cash, there's grave constitutional issues. So where there is too much control from the government. I mean, as we saw globally, the convoy, President Trudeau effectively had those contributing to the convoy stop their bank account frozen, and that was just because of them protesting. We can't have that overreach.
Thank you. Okay, for the next round, we've got a new order. Martin, would you like to go first, please?
Okay, number 7. Here. We have a Z. Interesting. Okay, Martin. The future of local government report says the current local government funding and finance system is already under pressure and is not sustainable. How is your party going to respond to this issue?
The first thing that we'd do is have a review of the local government costing of the councils, because there's a lot of additional spending in councils, and also the government is actually putting a lot of cost on councils. They're making decisions and legislation, and they're handing it over to the councils. We'd also look to change the Local Government Act and reduce basically put a lid on rates, and we'd peg that back with infrastructure and core services. The rest, the feel-good project, vanity projects, and the very large projects like Let's Get Wellington Moving, we changed the Act so that you'd get the chance to make a decision on the project itself, rather than this reckless spending that's going on at the moment and is going on throughout the country with the council. So we need to make sure that the various costs like tourism and transport, they're all allocated to the right place, because what we've seen over the years is the governments have actually passed it on to the councils.
Okay, next up, Jessica, what box number?
23, please.
23. So we've got a double A here. Jessica, here's your question. What is a quality that you admire in one of your fellow candidates?
I've had the occasion to interact with a lot of politicians over the 3 times I've stood for Parliament. And what I find is some politicians see someone coming from a small party and see that they have less power than them and decide to abuse that power. People who treat you differently when you are in front of potential voters and when you're in private are not people I respect. A person I admire who is not like that at all is Stephanie, who I think is a really, seems like a really kind person with very high integrity. And from the first moment we met, we've had really nice, respectful interactions. We don't agree on everything by any means, but I think that, she is in this for the right reasons.
Oh, kia ora. You are my pick too.
Okay, Patrick, what box number?
All right, let's go for number 6.
Number 6. Patrick. You've got the mysterious X. Patrick, this is your question. Would you or your party consider giving a fixed percentage of GST tax revenue to help fund local councils on infrastructure projects? Yes. Sorry.
We don't have a specific policy at the moment. This will need to be considered with our financial team, and before we can give a definite answer. to you, Tony, particularly. However, we do see value in ongoing tax commitments to local and regional infrastructure.
Greg's got a button.
Watch what's happening in China at the moment with their property market. It's collapsing and bringing its economy down with it because they incentivized local governments to keep on building. Even though there was no one to buy the buildings, and you've now got provinces full of empty buildings and huge debt because central government incentivized all the local governments to just keep on building. They keep lending them money to do it, gave them money, and the only way the local governments could get any money was to just keep on building. There was no one to come. Now, okay, we need more houses built, but that's not the way to do it, because all that's going to happen is that the local councils will become absolutely addicted to building houses. Now, some will say, oh, that's not a bad thing. Well, it will be a very bad thing if it's the only way they can get their revenue. They'll have their whole incentives, their whole machinery will be built up to that, and you'll end up exactly where China is now, going broke because they put all their money into property.
Okay. And I feel like someone who had that question in there looked at my Wellington City Council submission on the annual plan, because that feels very similar to something I submitted. Next up, Stephanie, what box number?
Could I get unlucky number 13 at the front?
Yes, yes.
Does your street have a number 13 in it?
Oh, I don't know. I'm on a very short street.
So this is an A-B question. A very short question, Stephanie. Tell us one personal quality you have to offer as an MP.
All right, I'm so glad I got this one and not the fake, what is your biggest weakness, which is where you're like, I'm just too perfect. One quality I would bring as an MP is that I am a big old communications nerd. I've worked as a comms advisor, a campaign advisor, and a press secretary, and I firmly believe that politicians need to communicate better. We need to communicate in real terms about the effects our policies will have on real people's lives. It is so easy to get up here and get a graph where either you pick the median household income or you pick the mean annual household income, depending on which story you want to tell about whether the economy is going up or down, depending on whether your party is in power. But do kids have enough food? Are kids going to school with shoes on their feet? Are our public libraries operating properly? Are our amazing northern suburbs community pools able to keep the doors open? Making politics real by communicating clearly about them is absolutely a strength I bring.
Okay, and Greg, what box number?
27, okay. And we have a W here. Greg, this is your question. Does your party believe that there should be a policy on the location of alternative energy sources, such as solar farms near urban areas?
Yeah, well, of course, and renewable energy sources, I might say, alternative energy sources. I like renewables. One of the problems is we've just rewritten the Resource Management Act into the Natural and Built Environments Act. One of the big problems is that try and build anything anywhere, and someone will use the Resource Management Act to stop you. Everyone hates the Resource Management Act until they want to use it to stop something happening in their neighbourhood, on their farm, in their vicinity. I mean, have a look in Wellington. There's a very good article in the paper today about Wellington celebrating not doing stuff, and be very afraid. I mean, look at what happened out in Shelley Bay. New Zealanders, Wellingtonians in particular, should be shaking their heads with dismay that yet another thing is not happening in Wellington, and there'll be people waving, but we've got to make things happen in this city. So yes.
Okay, and we've now got a new list with a new order. Stephanie, you're up first.
Ooh, pressure. Let's just make it easy for Tony and go with number 1.
Make my job easy. This is a P. Okay, Stephanie, it's a bit of a long question, so here it goes. Current information from overseas indicates that vaping is not a healthy alternative to smoking. Children of primary school age are becoming addicted. What is your party's plan to address this health concern?
So the Green Party are famously the party of drug harm minimisation. That's our approach to drug law. Prohibition doesn't work. Harm minimisation does, taking a practical approach. And also because we are the Green Party, we're all about people and planet. So one of the biggest problems with vaping is disposable vapes. They are cheap, they're easily available. They're easier to hide because you don't have to find a place to charge them. I know so many vapors and they're really obvious when they've got the nice big flash rigs. We need to be able to crack down on where vapes are sold, how they're getting into the hands of children, the disposable vapes, which also have such an impact on our environment, but always taking this from the harm minimisation approach. Not being the killjoys that people often stereotype us as, allowing adults to responsibly enjoy whatever it is they want to do in their life. But absolutely, we have to ensure that our communities are safe and healthy and able to make those choices to use recreational drugs in a free and open and uncoerced way.
Just before we head on, audience, do we have a vape store in Kandala? Okay, thank goodness, nothing's changed since I've moved out. Okay.
Well, you've got a dairy that sells vapes.
Oh, okay. Is that the one 3 doors down? Okay, I did not know that. You learn something new every day as a non-vapor or smoker. Greg, you're up next. What box number?
Oh, sorry, is that back to me?
Yeah.
18.
And is that how many hours you spent in the chair last time under urgency?
Okay, so we have a G. That's an interesting question. Greg, will your party review the Relationships and Sexuality Education, RSC, in primary schools?
I don't believe we have that policy. I know that I'm part of a party that is very, very accepting of all these alternative or every way that people want to live their lives. And specifically in primary schools, again, I'm not aware that there's any policy to change that.
Okay, and Patrick and Stephanie both want to use their buttons. Let's go with Patrick first, since that's the first card I saw.
All right, so we absolutely will. And so we will definitely review it in the view of stopping it. And, you know, we obviously will have to have something, but absolutely need to get it right before it gets into the classroom, because at the moment, we don't think it's right and appropriate. Introduction into sex and gender that can be different from your sex at birth. We disagree with that. Age 5 is not an appropriate age. Well, right through for primary school, we don't think that's appropriate as it stands right now. So I know some parties will justify their arguments about, oh, what about teen pregnancies? 5 is not a teen. What about sexual abuse? That's usually with families and friends. How does teaching yourself self-stimulation, masturbation, and sex help with that? So we will not only just review it, we will stop it and have it change to be more appropriate. Thanks.
Okay, Stephanie.
Kia ora. So the Green Party absolutely support the provision of inclusive, age-appropriate relationship and sexuality education in our schools. And yes, that includes primary school, because every child deserves to know that their body is their own and no one gets to touch it, no one gets to hurt them, no one gets to do things to them without their consent. And they need the language to express if they are being hurt or if they are not safe. And I'm sorry, but the scaremongering that is being ramped up around sex ed in this election campaign is being driven by archaic, conservative, misogynist bigotry, which treats women and children as property who don't get to have opinions about their own lives or their own bodies. And the Green Party 100% rejects that.
Thank you. Next up, Martin, what box number?
Number 9. Sorry, 9 is gone, I think. We've got 8 and 10. Can I ask you? 10, okay. It's hard to keep track. Okay, we have an R or a B. So do you support the right to women's safe, legal and timely access to abortion in New Zealand?
The party has a policy that it should be a woman's right to decide what she wants to do with her body.
Very short
Kia ora.
and concise. Okay. Next up, Patrick, what box number?
Let's go with 24.
24, okay. Patrick, so we have the eye, finally have the eye. So your question, Patrick, how effective do you consider the government's interventions action on youth offending have been?
Right. We don't think the government is doing enough, and whatever they are doing, you know, with more police, but in reducing youth offending, it seems to not be effective. So, I mean, RAM rates have increased by about 653% since 2017, and much of that is done by the youth. You know, so 80% of the youth that's causing RAM raids are under 18. So we need to be more firmer on crime to make our streets safer, and we need to take firmer action on youth offending and re-offending. So I mean, what Freedoms New Zealand want to do is a big blitz, a 6-month blitz on RAM raids, wipe it out. So I mean, we're going to have enforced youth curfews, particularly in the high hotspots of youth for under 16 between 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. But that's only for the first 6 months. We want to youth crime. Cheers.
So I want to ask, if this is one here, would you ban the importation of automatic vehicles and make them all manuals, considering from what I've heard from multiple police officers, the vehicles involved in RAM raids are all automatics?
Haven't heard of that, but hey, if that works.
But, yeah, sorry, Stacey's
Good luck with that one, Sam.
Yeah. Well, I proudly drive manual. I do know Greg does as well. That's, you know, is it Aston Martin?
Be nice. No, an Austin 1300, Sam.
Austin 1300, okay.
But I'll take an Aston Martin. I might just change the labels on it. You think if you're fooled into it.
When you got started with A. Jess, what box number?
Number 4, please, Tony.
Okay.
Is that how many gears Greg's car got? 4-speed manual?
4-speed manual.
Really shows his age.
Okay, thanks, Jessica.
Launch
So
into
we have a
each
K here for your question, Jessica. And the question is this: how has New Zealand changed since you were a child? Has it changed for the better?
There are some things that have changed for the better, especially if you're if you're a woman, if you're gay, if you're one of the any group that's been sort of discriminated against. We have become largely more accepting that, you know, people are people. However, I was born in 1979. In 1979, the median house price was about $25,000. That was about 3 times the median income. So a regular person could expect to have a decent job and be able to afford a house, generally on one income, and they could raise a family in a fairly decent way when I was born. That is so far from being the case today. The house prices are, depending on where you live, 8, 9, 10, 11 times the median income. It is completely out of reach for regular people to own housing unless they have very rich parents.
Okay, and we will get to our last round of box questions. Jess, you get top of this list.
Number 8, please.
Yeah, thank you. Making my job easy.
I'm not superstitious, Tony, so.
So this is a T. So your question is, it's a wee bit long actually. So your question is this: rest homes are losing RNs to Te Whātau as they are unable to match the pay packages. Do you think the packages for RNs should be equitable across all sectors of healthcare?
Yeah, this is not just a problem for nurses, it's also a problem for social workers who in the community sector can't compete with oranga tamariki. So, of course, it is really important that our frontline public servants are paid well, and they need to be paid enough to keep up with our increasing housing prices. So one of the reasons, by the way, one of the ways to keep these people in New Zealand is to deal with the housing crisis. But yes, we do need to pass on these the salary increases, which have been very needed and still haven't gone far enough, to other sectors, because otherwise the community sectors, including the retirement villages, just can't compete. And those areas are woefully understaffed at the moment, which has quite tragic consequences for vulnerable people living in retirement villages and supported living and hospital level care.
Okay, next up, Patrick, what box number?
All right, we'll go with 15.
Thanks, Patrick. So your question is Q. And the question is, in your opinion, should councils be forced by the Ministry of Health to fluoridate their water supplies?
No, absolutely not. We definitely should not be, we should be more democratic about it rather than being dictated, particularly for the local councils. And, you know, many people are concerned about fluoridation. You know, studies have shown that fluoridation of water makes no difference with your tooth decay. Tooth decay rates have dropped in New Zealand, both whether it's fluoridated or non-fluoridated areas.
I'm sorry, are we going to allow disinformation on the show?
I can give you stats. I can give you reports for this too. Towns and cities decays have stayed the same regardless of when fluoridation has stopped. Latest study, 2016, carried by a pro-fluoride dentist. Dentists showed no difference in decay rates in children regardless of fluoridation status. But our government continues to rely on an old 2009 oral health survey to base their claims for efficiency rather than the latest studies. Remember, surveys are not scientifically robust.
Yeah, Greg is now butting in.
Yeah, that is why it should be compulsory. The science is proven, and the problem is by leaving it up to each council to vote each time is that you get those same old conspiracy theories rolled out using wrong facts. So let's just make it the science is proven. I grew up on a farm down on the west coast. We didn't have fluoride. Our teeth were worse than my cousins who grew up in town where they did have fluoride. So it makes it easy for the councils to save having to go through this battle for every city and every town in New Zealand. So there is living proof why it should be compulsory for councils.
Okay, Martin, you're up next.
12, thank you. Okay, box number 12. This is an R. Martin, your question is this. Do you think that transgender females should be able to compete in women's sports?
I believe, or a party believes, that having transgender females compete with other women is unfair. And in actual fact, it would be more desirable, preferable to have a second competition whereby you have a separate category that they could enter into. Yeah, that's it. Thanks.
Okay, Stephanie wants to use your button.
Kia ora. All right, so we have another question which is arising out of this same conservative movement, which frankly wants to shove all cis women into a uterus-shaped box. And so I really want to push back incredibly strongly. Trans women are women. Of course they should compete in women's sport. They're women. That's how the logic goes. We are now in the midst of a rise of anti-trans sentiment, which has seen trans women banned from women's chess. Now, if you're in favour of banning trans women from women's chess on the grounds that there's some kind of biological advantage, then you might as well just admit you think cis women are inferior creatures who can't think good, instead of pretending that this has anything to do with safety or equality or fairness. Of course, sporting bodies can set the standards for competition the way they do for hormones, anabolic steroids, for example, the way they do for age, the way they do for weight classes. But trans women are women, so of course trans women should play women's sport, and trans men should be in men's sport, and non-binary people should just get to choose and win all the medals. Kia ora.
And I wonder how that would go around with darts, because I know a transgender woman who was banned from darts, which I don't think accuracy really changes regardless of what's your gender. Okay, next up, Greg, what box number?
11. Good.
So this is E or F. How are you going to address the cost of living crisis? Just a small one.
Well, the cost of living crisis is being caused by essentially international events. COVID really started it. You've got exacerbated by the Russia-Ukraine war, supply chain issues. What I really find quite amusing is that people who have been convinced by, let's face it, the falsehoods of coming out of the opposition, that this has all been caused by Grant Robertson in New Zealand. And people go off overseas on holidays and say, gee, you know, overseas they've got inflation, you know they've got high interest rates, you know they've got crime, and we thought it was only in New Zealand. So what we're doing, the good news is the inflation is coming down in New Zealand, that we are not in recession, we never were, and that actually we've had 3% growth in the last year. So a lot of the issues have been addressed, particularly supply chain issues, and I think you'll see some pretty good results in the next short while.
And Jessica wants to use her button card.
Okay. The Russia and Ukraine and the US and everywhere else in the world did not choose to fail to fix our tax system for over 30 years. Labor did and National did. They are both equally responsible for the largest house price growth in the OECD since 1989. This is why we have the most unaffordable housing and rent. You have not fixed that, Greg. What an absurd
House prices are
thing
coming
to say.
down.
House interest rates have
House
gone up.
prices are
House
coming down.
prices have slightly dipped. Did I interrupt you?
House prices have come down.
Sorry, are you able to pause the clock and let Greg get this out of his system? Or?
I think it's just
Reclaim your
been
time.
reset.
So there has been a very slight dip in house prices recently, which, as Greg keeps saying, is just about to turn around and they're going to shoot up again. Or did I mishear you on that one?
Only if National's policies
Sorry, that
are
was a
implemented.
rhetorical question.
You asked me a question, didn't you?
It was a rhetorical question.
Start her again.
So, National and Labor have chosen not to fix the tax system. The tax system has been driving up investment in houses, including ghost houses, including inefficient use of houses, which is why we have the third biggest houses in the OECD. This is a crisis they have chosen. This is the major cause of the cost of living crisis. This is not caused by events overseas. This is caused by inaction, particularly by Labor and National, and none of their coalition partners have been able to convince them to do anything about it. Top can come in and make them do better. National and Labor know that this is the cause of the problem because they have commissioned tax working groups for decades who have told them the problem and they have been ignored.
Okay, and lucky last, Stephanie, what box number?
Ooh. I'm going to practice my treo and go for Ruatako Mawaru, please, Tony.
And it's actually not correct. It's, no,
It should be Ruatako. You've missed the Rua, but I corrected you.
Speak to the person at
As
the
a
back of the
flex.
room.
Okay. This is S. Stephanie, your question, the last question.
Yes, for Stephanie.
Yes, for Stephanie is right. what do you consider the critical impacts will be for a race-based policy that prioritises some ethnic groups for medical procedures over others?
It's a very easy question. Thank you, Tony, because I don't think imaginary policies have any impact at all. The simple fact is that we know some groups in Aotearoa, New Zealand, experience worse access to healthcare and worse health outcomes, particularly Māori and Pacifica, regardless of their income or regardless of any other circumstance. That is a structural bigotry and bias in our system, and we have to fix it. And one of the ways we fix that more generally is by ensuring that our health workers and our health system are putting the priority on the people whose need is greatest. We've received this question a lot, and everyone says, well, healthcare should be allocated based on need. And the thing is, some groups need more access to healthcare and need different ways of being reached out to and need different approaches in order to ensure that they get the same kind of access to healthcare that people like me just get to take for granted because the system is built for people like me. Kia ora.
Thank you. And just before we go to a break, we'd like to thank Tony for doing the part as being the question master for tonight, because I know unless you're planning to stay for the second half, thank you for your participation coming here tonight.
Thanks so much for inviting me along and have a bit of fun. And thanks to also the candidates. They've had so many meetings. I chaired the Johnsonville meeting on Wednesday night and like keeping on. I really appreciate all your energy and all the best of luck.
Thanks,
Thanks,
you.
Tony.
Tony.
Thanks, Tony.
Kia ora, Tony.
Okay, so we're going to be taking a quick break now. I forgot to do this earlier, so when we come back, we'll do the questions we think you'll be asking after watching tonight's show, and then we'll follow by hard-hitting questions. The questions we think you'll be asking after watching today's show, and I'll just bring it up so I can actually get it. 100% of Kiwis are ready to file AR10s every year to make sure that they're in or out of the 2% wealth tax club. Number 2, what steps will these candidates take to stop corporations price gouging Kiwis in their day-to-day living? And will Ohariu voters approve of Harold the helicopter-style approach from their local MP for the next 3 years? So some questions we think that might be worth contemplating with our candidates who are here tonight and those who aren't here. So now let's get for the next fun part, hard-hitting questions. Okay, so with hard-hitting questions, these are where all candidates have to answer the questions that are happening on the show. We have 2 questions in, was it for tonight, like we do for every single show. You cannot use your button cards or your defer cards, but, well, you know, everyone's answering them. So, you know, oh, I'm going to defer my answer to, oh, no, wait a minute, they're already given an answer. So it wouldn't work in if you button to give the answer where you're already given one. So the first hard-hitting question for the night is, what is your and your party's plans for Lancashire Farm area? Which Lancashire Farm? That's up near Granada. Was it Village, between Granada Village and Granada North? Local knowledge? Yep, local knowledge. Okay, now I'll get to my good old random number sheet and we'll hit a refresh. So Jessica, you get to start first.
Okay, so this is a question, really, it's about roading and about housing, which are 2 of my favourite topics. When it comes to roading, we're talking about the Petone Granada Road, which is what would allow the housing development in Lincolnshire Farm. When it comes to that, politicians should stay out of the decision. It should be a decision that the authorities bid up to the National Land Transport Fund, and if the project stands on its merits, it should be funded, and if it doesn't, it should not. When it comes to the Calendar brothers, who are basically oligopoly property developers in Wellington, they hold on to property when amenities like that road, which is going to come from public funding, go in, their land value goes up. But they don't have to pay any extra tax on that. So a land tax would not only reward the public for the money they are putting into things, but also encourage them to get off their butts and develop that land.
Okay, next up, Martin. How would you like to answer the hard-hitting question?
Well, our party policy is to develop land in affordable areas and on the city fringes, and the idea is that's exactly where it should be. The area should be, and the infrastructure supported by the government. The government should pay for the infrastructure. Well, the infrastructure paid by the government, then it's affordable. Then you get an affordable house around the $650,000 mark rather than not being able to afford it in the city, and you can do large numbers of housing. So by the time you take the land and the construction, consultant, social development and finance costs, you get the total development cost, and you look at the actual revenue projection, you'll find it's actually doable. And that's for affordable houses. Now, of course, we're quite keen to also get social housing, which is all 350,000, 400,000. In that case, the government buy the land, the developer does the rest, and then it's a rent to buy type scenario. All of those scenarios are not possible in built up areas. It's a myth being sold by the government in the past. They tried to tell you that 2/3 of the RV, 950,000, everyone was sucked into that. The affordable houses is 600,000.
Okay, next up, Greg.
Yeah, I recently had a good 2-hour drive around that area with Rod Calendar. Now, Rod Calendar is, it's not the Calendar brothers, by the way. It's Rod is the owner, and he's got son involved in it. And they own that land. So the government, unless there is some sort of compulsory purchase in there, which I don't think is going to happen, the Calendars are developing that. Shortly, there's a road going through that's going to join up with Woodridge right through there. There's the Wright brothers who are up the top in Woodridge, who also developing area. One of the things that's holding it back up there is water, actually. Particularly up the top, because when you do a development, you've actually got to have sufficient water, and there's not much that's going to happen there until they get enough water at the top. At the moment, the Wrights have got they can do about probably another 300 houses, but after that, they won't be able to do any more because they haven't got enough water. So I think the government can actually do anything. What it is, it's a job for a local MP to actually get in there and be working with those people, working with the council, working with everyone else, and that's exactly what I'm doing.
Okay, Stephanie.
All right, no specific policy in that area, but I have to say this is a question that will unite all of us, and really missing Nicola tonight because she has such a great patter about the Granada-Petone link and the 5,000 houses that it would open up the land for. The thing is, we know that just building another road or adding another lane does not fix congestion. And if you're talking about a road that you're then going to slap 5,000 houses on, then it's especially not going to fix congestion unless we're somehow proposing a magical green development where no one actually needs to have a car because we have effective walking, cycleways and public transport links. The Green Party's charter is built around appropriate decision making. So the decision for this should really lie with the people who will possibly live there, the people who already live there, with the council who are elected to make these kind of decisions, and of course with the local MP who should get out there but probably doesn't have a lot of the decision making power in these kind of situations.
You made me think of them putting a subway station in the middle of Tunnel 2 to sit there and make it public transport accessible. Last up, Patrick.
Yeah, I mean, our party, we haven't got a specific policy around this, but obviously it's about increasing housing and our roading. We know that Nicola National will plan that highway between Petone and Granada, and that is going through that area. And so one of the problems that they can't continue the development or planning is because is this motorway going to be in there or not? So yes, in terms of if it's going to be working for the area and if it's working for congestion and all those things, yeah, I'm for it. You know, many people drive to the hut, and this gives an extra way out or in to the northern suburbs. But yes, so we're going to have population growth, so we do need to build our housing. but we want to build it sensibly, affordably, and sustainably. Thanks.
Okay, thank you for that, candidates. Now let's get on to hard-hitting question number 2. What will you do to encourage the redevelopment of the Johnsonville Mall? Sorry, I had to sit there and say that because I think that's been a thorny issue on the topic for a very long time in the Ohariu Electorate. Starting off with Stephanie, how would you?
All right. Well, I'm just going to say I think this is a bit of a difficult one because if this were a problem that a local MP could fix, it would have happened already. And I'm not casting shade on Greg there. I'm saying the previous incumbent would have got it done. Sorry, little pun there. Couldn't resist. Please forgive me. So I believe in being honest as a political candidate. And the fact is, I don't think the local MP has a huge amount of influence in this area. Now, Greg is probably going to talk a lot about the bulldozers would have gone in last week. Jessica's going to talk about taxes. If Nicola were here, she would have talked about mixed use. All of those sound great, but I'm not going to make promises I can't keep. What I can say is that if you party vote Green and get me in on the Green list, then we will have 2 or maybe 3 Ohariu-based MPs in Parliament, and maybe we could all get the job done together where one has failed to do so. Kia ora.
Next up, Jessica.
Funnily enough, a land value tax not only fixes the Lincolnshire farm problem, it also fixes the Johnsonville Mall. And for the same reason, you've got these developers who are effectively acting as land bankers. They are enjoying huge untaxed capital gains, and the gains go up whenever we, taxpayers, put more amenities around their land, but they don't have to do anything for us in return. So Stride and the Australian super funds that did want to invest in it, they can just sit there and let the land value rise, and it doesn't matter if it's a ghost town at the heart of our community. They don't care. They are a commercial enterprise, and they don't care if a local MP says to them, please bring bulldozers, because it is a commercial decision for them. We can change the commercial incentives by changing our tax system to make it make sense for them to either develop the mall or sell it to someone who will.
Okay. Martin.
The first step in this project is to start liking developers. You've got to respect the fact that they bring huge utility value, whether they're building a hospital, a retirement village, a retail centre, a commercial building. I've worked for 7 development companies. I was developing a Solomon World Square, which is much bigger than that Johnsonville project, 250,000 square metres, 25,000 square metres retail. And the deal, what you've got to do there is you've got to sit with the developers and say, okay, guys, let's look at your development model. I talked about that before. Development costings, development potential revenue, and particularly the potential development profit and the margin. Most developers work 25% margin after all costs because for that, they take the risk, they get the money. So we've got to sit down and look at the model. What's missing here? Now, unfortunately, with these large-scale projects, whether it be Shelley Bay, the Old Bank Arcade, is they actually, quite often, because the market's down and the costs are right up with earthquake strength and everything else, you have deficits. So you've got to look down and say, what's missing? How can we make it work for you? That's where it starts. And it's not about shifting soil and things like that. It's about working with them, the deal.
Okay. Patrick.
All right, I mean, we don't have anything specific, but for me, I was thinking we definitely need involvement with public investors, and we have to keep engaging it. I mean, I know there was talks with the council, if the redevelopment doesn't happen, that, you know, we'll use our powers to try and buy it and then make it work. But that's, you know, bringing on debt to the council, and that will just increase the rates for the taxpayers and making it harder for everyone else. So that's not the way to go. But what we really think is that maybe we need to re-engage and re-communicate with the investors, and maybe attract and somehow bring in the table. Maybe we can bring in more investors to try and see how that can work together in a partnership. So really need to collaborate with, yeah, of course, with a bit of central, local and private investors, but probably more the private investors need to take on more of this role. It's just unfortunate our economic climate is this way at the moment, and that is probably not for them. Cheers.
Okay. Greg.
There is a role for a local MP, and I've done it. What you do is you bring together likely allies, and I started a business association, which has now become a BID, who are actually very engaged in this. Stride are a publicly listed company, so can't talk publicly about much. You go and meet with them regularly. You meet with the board, so you know as an MP exactly what has been proposed. They are currently talking to the council about getting permission to go to their the new model. They'll need council to change the plan to do it. At the moment, the problem is that the Australian funds who need to sign it off haven't done so, and that news only came through basically late last year, early this year. That will happen, and as a local MP, the goal is to make sure you're working with all parties involved, find out where the blockage is and work on it. The role of an MP is to be a circuit breaker, and you can circuit break, you just got to know where the blockage is. So there is a role for an MP.
Thank you, candidates, for answering our hard-hitting questions. Okay, so the next part that comes up here is what would be your first private members bill you'd put into the ballot? Now, I have been told tonight they're not called private members bills anymore, they're called members bills. Okay, so we'll have to change our sheets in there for that, but these are little things there. So there was it. So we give each candidate 2 minutes to mention what their members bill is, and I'll just get a order sheet. And first up is Greg. And just want to ask, you've got a unique position at the moment. Well, technically at the moment you're not Deputy Speaker because Parliament's dissolved, but are you actually allowed a private members bill in the box?
Yes, I am able to have a members bill. I do have a members bill. In fact, I'll take you through the members bill that I have. Currently, if a sex offender on the child sex offender register wants to go, for example, to Napier for a week or a weekend, he or she, generally a he, has to say where they're going, say where they're going to be staying, and importantly, say if there are going to be any children at the address where they're going to be. And however, there's nothing to stop them jumping on a plane to Sydney or Brisbane, or even going up into Asia and having there's no requirement of them to reveal where they're going to be staying, how long they're going to be there, or more importantly, are there going to be any vulnerable children or children at all at those addresses. What my bill does is says that if you are going, essentially the same requirements that you have when you go to Napier, you will have if you go to Brisbane. Now, this is twofold. It's not only to protect the victims, which it should always be about. It actually, the more work I've done with that, with the psychiatrists, those that are around it, shows you're actually protecting, and the offenders like this protection because they know they can't trust themselves. They know that if they go somewhere and there are young children, they are likely to reoffend. They don't want to go back to jail. They know how particularly tough it is in jail for a sex offender. And so my bill is at select committee, and after the election, there is a rehash of those bills, but it is still live, and it will report back for its second reading. So that's the bill I have currently.
Okay, next up, Patrick.
So, I mean, I'll make it different this year. I mean,
Thank you.
Yeah. Sam's complaining that all the Vision candidates want to put in a parental rights bill. Yes, that is hard. That is true to our heart, but I will make it different this time.
Thank you.
Also, with Freedoms New Zealand, we have a law and order policy that we feel that is really good. And one of it is tackling our youth crime. As I said, and I mentioned earlier, that many of them are doing the ram raids. And so what I would like to propose is put in a bill that we, for youth offenders, on that there will be ankle bracelets. So if you, no matter what age you are, whether you, when you can do the crime, you should be able to do the time. So, we need to track where they are because most of them are re-offending. So, you have the offence once and then you have an offence twice, and that's when you'll get that bracelet. So we'll know whether they're going out. And also through that bill, we'll also have that your guardian, your parents who are still the guardians have an accountability. So if the youth is doing the crime, your parents or your guardian should also be in the courts, which is currently there's provision for now, but it's not, it's being a bit soft on. So we will toughen on that. That's what we will do. Cheers.
Thank you. Next up, Martin, what will be your first private members bill?
My first members bill will be in the areas of road safety and basically Martin's drowsy driving bill. At the moment, we have a situation where if you drink a bottle of whiskey and you hit the road, you know you're going to potentially kill someone. If you speed, hit the road, you know you're going to kill someone. Also the same in driver fatigue, drowsy driving. If you are dog tired, for example, 24 hours of wakefulness, 24 hours of wakefulness is equivalent to 0.1 BAC, blood alcohol content, and that's twice the legal limit. So we need a law, a bill that basically, an act that says that if you are dog tired and you kill someone, then there's a specific offence of drowsy driving. And it's a gap in the law at the moment. They found the same in the United States, number of states, and they passed laws, and now that you can get up to 10 years jail for drowsy driving causing death. And the same recently in 2004 in Australia, they passed a law that said that you get 5 years jail. So what this will do is actually help or tighten everything up, help educate people about the dangers, and there'll be specific penalties for that. Because in actual fact, a drowsy driving crash, the actual result, they've got the 4 times the death rate, and you're talking about 2 cars, 100k each. It looks just as violent as a speeding crash. So it's critically important that we fill this gap. Unfortunately, there's been a lot of tragedies. In the situation in New Zealand, if you get someone in a pickup truck crashes into a bus and 25 people are killed, the maximum penalty under careless driving causing death is 4 months. So it's this thing about actus reus, mens rea, the intent versus the mental element side. We need to definitely deal with this.
Okay, next up, Jessica.
Okay, I'm going to try and bend the rules a little bit here, because the thing about members' bills is they're a little bit weird. A members' bill generally is a tweak. It's usually something kind of small, and if you're not from the party that's already in Parliament, you're not likely to get the numbers to get past the first reading. Plus, if it has any financial implications, the government can do a financial veto. So that means members' bills tend to be in the area of tweaks. And TOP doesn't operate in the area of tweaks. We operate in the area of fundamental change, of fixing the foundations of our country. So I'm going to wave a magic wand and pretend that I can introduce a piece of legislation that would make a real difference to our country, and that would be introducing a universal basic income. A universal basic income is an amount that everybody gets, regardless of their work status or their wealth. It's basically like if you took New Zealand's superannuation, but you lowered the age to 18. Plus we have a different one for children. This would replace lower benefits only. People on higher rates of income support would still keep that. But what the universal basic income does is it rewards unpaid work. It puts more money in people's pockets. It provides a much, much better incentive and encouragement for work than traditional welfare, because there's no abatements. If you're a student, for instance, you wouldn't have to do as I did and say, I'm sorry, I can't earn more than $135 a week because I'm going to lose my income. I could say, actually, yeah, I will do another shift. Great for workers, great for employers. Universal basic income also protects people in the changing nature of work, with casualisation of work, and it really helps people to cushion the blow if they lose work or if they want to start a new business. It's fabulous. It would change our economy, change our relationships, change our...
Okay, Stephanie, what will be your first members bill?
Like Jessica, I'm going to cheat slightly, but in a slightly different way, because I'm going to nominate 2. Because the thing about members' bills is there's a big difference depending on whether you are an MP who is part of the current government or whether you're an MP on the opposition benches. So if we are in opposition after this election, members' bills are a really important way to make changes to unjust or unclear laws. And in that case, I would be focusing on a series of members' bills over time, because all of them would get passed, on workers' rights and on implementing the recommendations of the Welfare Expert Advisory Group. My first would specifically implement recommendation 13, which is to change the age of the child at which their parent is expected to go back to work from 3 to 6. It is simply unjust to be kicking parents whose kids may not even have got a place in kindy yet back into the workforce. And that was recommended by WEAG. Labor's failed to implement it. So that would be my first one if we were in opposition. However, if we were in government, that would be happening anyway, because we'd be pushing all kinds of amazing policies coming out of the WEAG report. So in that case, I'd get a little nerdy with it, and I'd be picking up a bill that has been promoted by everyone's favorite Twitter lawyer and board game nerd Graham Edgler, which is reforms to the Maori Community Development Act. We currently have, and this is very interesting given how many parties keep talking about laws based on race and policies based on race, we still have laws on the books that criminalize specific unruly behaviours if the person doing them is Maori. If the person doing them is going to a tangi or going to a marae or going to a gathering of, and I'm sorry, but this is how it's still drafted, Maoris. So we have some basic racist laws still on the books. People might say that they're not implemented, but they just shouldn't be there at all. We should send a clear message, and I would hope that every party would support that.
Audience, how do you feel about those, was it members' bills? That's something you'd all get behind? Okay. Yeah, bit silence there. So let's kick off the next part for closing statements, because, you know, that time of the night. What was it? Come on, give me a new list. Okay. So, yeah, 1 minute for your closing statements. First up, Jessica.
Are you sick of the continual left-right shuffle and never going forwards? Would you like to see progress in this country? Would you like to see us fixing some of the fundamentals, getting to the root causes of some of our problems? The Opportunities Party can deliver that. We are so sick of the continual little shuffle to the left, little shuffle to the right, and never moving forwards. We are willing to work with any of the parties in Parliament to make them do better than they would otherwise do. I am asking for your party vote. I'm also asking for your electorate vote, because I would be absolutely honoured to represent my community in Ohariu, and no one is going to look after you and us, our community, better than someone who is here, because I love this place and I love our people and I love this community. Kia ora.
Okay. Martin, your closing statement.
With a background in engineering and finance and years of experience in engineering, project management, property development, retail management, business development, art management, and also community work, I'm very well positioned to help here. And also with my experience at ORCA, Onsite Residents Community Association, I was the past vice president and also inaugural member. We involve a lot of interesting projects in the community involving emergency resilience, road safety expos, dog courses, and Burma project. So with the schools, I'm actually very strong at solving problems. And we have a lot of problems at the moment. We have crises, we have health, we have law and order, we have cost of living, we have housing, we have climate, we have road safety, we have everything under the sun. So I'm a problem solver. So I'm very keen on finishing a project. I don't just make an announcement. I'm very strong at actually information and project completion. Thank you.
Okay, next up, Greg, your closing statement.
I'm sick of opposition politicians running this country down. Yes, there's been problems. Most of them have come about as a result of COVID, and we're getting through them now. They're despairing at the good news that came this week. The economy is actually in good shape. We're not in recession. The overseas ratings agencies have all looked at New Zealand and said, actually, you're not in that bad a shape, and kept our ratings. So this Labor government is actually done given what they've had to put up with, a very good job. Locally, I'm your person here. I've spent 6 years on the ground, omnipresent. I have a good understanding of not just the issues in Kandala where I live, but also from Wadestown right through to Tawa. I have good relationships through the sports clubs, through the pubs, through the residents associations, of which there are 8, and I can walk into virtually anywhere where there are large numbers of people here gathered, and I will know those people. So I have got a great base to build from, and I'm really looking for the opportunity to remaining your MP and building on the work that I have done.
Okay. Stephanie.
Poverty and the housing crisis and climate inaction are all political decisions, and we can make different political decisions. And by party voting Green, we will get the policies that we need to ensure that every single person in Aotearoa, New Zealand, doesn't just have the bare minimum, but has enough to live a full and healthy and happy life. By implementing an incredibly popular wealth tax on the wealthiest New Zealanders, we can have an income guarantee that applies to everyone, whether you are in paid work or not, whether you are sick, a parent, an artist, a student. We can have free dental and free school lunches. We can have real climate action. We can have clean oceans, lakes, and rivers. It is all actually quite possible, and it is all very well costed, and it is all available on our website, greens.org.nz. So I am asking Ohariu for your party vote for the Green Party in this election. Kia ora.
And Patrick, your closing statement.
Oh, many of you and here and online would agree that, we are due for positive change in New Zealand, and that change doesn't always come from going to the blue or going to the red. We've had 88 years of that, but that change is, allowing new voices, new fresh ideas to come in. And so that's where we stand. Freedoms New Zealand, we'll bring a new view, new ideas to the table. So as I said earlier, I will be a voice for the voiceless and for really empowering families, individuals, and also with our party, Freedoms New Zealand, we'll uphold your rights and freedom. So do consider voting for Freedoms New Zealand and for myself, Patrick Lim, for Ohariu. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to the candidates for all being on here. I'm very pleased to the fact that we've had a very good turnout of candidates, and thank you so much for coming tonight. I'm honoured that you spent tonight being quizzed by our fantastic questions from members of the public. Can I also thank for the audience who have held out for the night. I'd like Nick to see if he can go with camera 1 to pan around to show the audience. We did have someone online ask if we actually had one, so let's actually show everyone the fact that we have an audience on there, and get to see many of the different people from the crew, all that sort of stuff, because we got through there. Can I also thank both Nick and Alex and Caleb for their contribution in studio for doing things, and for both Stacey and Ray who have done remote editing from here. That's one of the things we have. The great part about our team is, we're not just in studio, we also have a remote team who sits down there and does all our on-screen name titles, and they also sit down there and do fact checking and put out useful information for the viewers to sit there and see. I think I might respond to you, Taylor. Yes, that is now. We did have a lot more earlier. Some people do move on. It is quite late at night. Some people do have early bedtimes, and some people like to get to the takeaway stores before they close at 9 o'clock. So we'll be heading off tomorrow, and we'll be starting our trip on the road. We've got Rangitake Electorate show tomorrow at 3 p.m, and we've got the Palmerston North Electorate show at 7 p.m, both at Edgeware Community Centre. The Rangitake one's downstairs in the workshop, and the Palmerston North one's upstairs in the Evelyn something room. Stacey will probably put that across the screen of saying which one it is. And then on Monday we'll be heading all the way up to Wanganui for Wanganui Electorate, and I might butcher this electorate name up, but Te Tai Hararuru. Have I said that?
Hauru.
Okay, thanks. Yep. Off for that electorate, and then on Tuesday we're off to New Plymouth for New Plymouth Electorate, and Thursday then we're heading across to Rotorua for Waitariki and Rotorua Electorate, which will be very interesting ones, and I think we'll be having a lot of fun on the road. So we'll see you back, Alex, we'll see you back here at 3 p.m. tomorrow for the Rangitikei Electorate Show. Have a good evening.